whereas Coach Sandoval is the rookie, that would make you the veteran. Second trip to the island. Probably just as exciting, maybe even a little easier now going into it, having a good idea of what this whole event and this trip entails. Talk about the energy around your team, and now a lot of new additions that will be making the trip for the first time for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, we're very excited about this opportunity, and there's so many layers to why we're excited. You're right. Last year we went through it, and it was just kind of like this idea we came up with, and we'll figure out what happens. And we just learned so much. We had such a positive experience, but there was so much learning that happened. And as soon as that match ended, when this idea was first formed, it was an idea that Central and I were going to play. And then after we were done playing, we were going to invite two other teams to take over. And after the match, I was talking to their coach, and we're like, yeah, this is our thing. Like, we're doing this, and we're going back. And so we immediately met with some administrators and said, hey, we want to come back. We want to make it better. We've learned so much. And we learned very quickly that the feeling around the people on the island was that this was a really positive experience, and they were excited about the prospect of us coming back. And so we knew about a year ago that this was probably going to happen again. We just needed the support of our administration, which they are giving us 100% support. And we're adding new things. John had alluded that he's playing there, and the theater department doing their performances we're really excited about. But ultimately, this is an opportunity very early in the season for our team to kind of detach from the world and get out there and have some opportunities to grow together and learn about each other, and then ultimately culminate with a match against Central Michigan, who's a Division I opponent that's going to challenge us and make us better. They've been practicing for longer than we have. They're ahead of the game. They've been playing for about a week longer than us. So we're going to be behind the eight ball in terms of our competitiveness, but there's still no reason to believe that we shouldn't be competitive in that match and learn about ourselves and get this opportunity. And so, yeah, we're stoked for this. And it's kind of wild that what we leave in like 3 days, and we've just had our third practice. And so we'll get there. We'll get there.
So we heard how the women's soccer team is going to be just kind of soaking in the island for the day of the match and the day before. Is it going to be similar for your team approach, or are you going to kind of, prepare for that game? I don't want to say a little bit more, but a little bit differently than how the women's soccer team is.
No, I think we're on the same page. One of the things we did last year, again, we talked about all the learning that happened, is we practiced here, and then we drove over, and then we took the ferry, and we basically wasted a day on the island. And I think that night, when I was on the island, I said, we can't do it this way. We got to get to the island as soon as possible. So we have a 7 a.m. bus, taking the ferry over at 10, I believe. We'll practice immediately once we get there. And then we'll spend the rest of the afternoon. We're doing a barbecue with the players and the families. Truly, this experience is about coming together as a team. People think growth only happens in the gym when you're working and you're playing the sport, but truly in a sport like ours, and I would say the same with soccer, a lot of it comes down to developing trust within each other, and some of that trust happens off the floor. And so when you get to know somebody, you develop that relationship with them. When you're on the floor, you're more likely to find success. And so yes, practicing and competing is a big part of it, and our preparation will be, really just Thursday. And truly Thursday is just about learning how to do a warm-up before a match, because we haven't done that. And but after the match, we're doing some stuff with the theater department, and then Sunday we're doing some sort of sip and sail thing. I don't know. So there are more layers again to what we're doing, but ultimately the goal is when we come back on Sunday, we feel closer as a team. And I hope I feel it on the bus ride back.
You talk about being closer to the team, building team morale. What did you find out about your team when you did this a season ago, and you becoming closer with the ladies on the team as well?
It's just this is kind of a weird way to say it, but there's nowhere to hide, right? So you're with each other all the time. You're getting just to know each other, right? There are 8 freshmen on this team, and there were, I don't remember how many freshmen last year. And so it's this opportunity when you're all spending all your time together just to get to know each other. That's just part of growing that bond as a team and developing that relationship. And last year, that was part of it, right? That was my first time ever on Mackinac Island. And so you're looking around, like trying to soak it all in and asking people who have been there before questions about it. And so I'm asking my players like, hey, where did you go when you came with your family? And I think it'll be the same experience this year with some of those freshmen. We only have 2 of them are from the state of Michigan, and I think that only one of them had been when they were like a kid. And so their experience, so I now feel a little bit like the veteran that I get to be like, oh yeah, this is where we had breakfast, or this is where the school is, this is the Grand Hotel, and kind of explaining all that, taking those bike rides that when you're going around the entire island, it can be tough. And so doing that together and having that experience is going to be amazing, and I'm very excited for it.
Speaking of those 8 freshmen, that's a very large freshman class of volleyball players. What are some of the strengths we might see from them on the court?
This is by far the most athletic team we've ever had. Every single freshman that's coming in brings a level of athleticism that, we lost Lizzie, Maddie, and Allie as seniors. They're all athletes. So I'm not saying we lost a bunch of non-athletes and we're replacing them with athletes. But when you have 8 of them, right? And so when you create that kind of depth in your roster, you can have the level of play stay high, because when someone's dragging or struggling, you sub them out, you bring somebody else in. And so I expect the level of play in the gym day in and day out to be more consistent at a higher level. We just experienced it. We just had practice this morning, and the end of the practice was really great and really intense, high energy. The execution is terrible. Let's get that straight. And I've told them that. But, the non-negotiable things that you have to bring into the gym every day, effort, energy, communication, they had those things, right? And then you talk about a ball that's kind of shanked, and someone else is able to run that ball down and keep it alive, and the rally continues. Those are things we haven't always had before. And it's been really exciting to have that. And so now if we can continuously bring those 3 intangibles and then add the skill into it, I think we have a really high ceiling. TBD, right? We talk a lot about the word potential, and that's what we do as recruiters, is you bring in athletes that have the potential to be great, right? And then it's up to us as coaches and their teammates to help them realize that potential. We're kind of in that phase between there's potential there, we've seen glimmers of it, but not frequently enough. So hopefully as this week and next week go on, we're going to start to see that.
Coach, can you talk about the atmosphere on Mackinac Island when you're in that game, and the difference between, being here at Northern or traveling on the road? It's got to be a different feeling when you're there in that gym and playing.
Yeah. I think everyone's aware of the experience that's being had. It's not just like another match where you get your ticket, you punch your ticket, you find your seat. It's like everyone's kind of interacting during it. And last year especially was kind of fun because we're like, oh, we should have music. And it's like, well, they don't have a PA system hooked up, so let's grab a speaker and a microphone and do that. And grabbing Bill Dignite out of the crowd and be like, hey, can you do just say Point Cats when we score? And so that whole thing. And then there are only 200 tickets available, right? We reserved 50 for our family and friends, 50 for Central's family and friends, 50 for the island, and then 50 general admission. And then, they disappear like that. And so you'd think 200 people, how exciting can the atmosphere be? It's very exciting because the place is completely full, really standing room only. And the people on the island, they've never seen competition live there before like this. And so watching, I invited the high school team, all 8 of them, to come watch and to watch them see that and kind of be wide-eyed and be like, wow, this is so cool. Providing that experience for the people on the island is just as rewarding, and I think they give it back to us tenfold, and their excitement to be there, because that's ultimately what you want to do. You want to play in front of a crowd that cares to be there, that's engaged in what you're doing. And very often when we're playing our conference schedule, some venues just don't fill, right? They don't get as many spectators, and it's kind of hard to create that energy. Our bench does an incredible job of supplying that, but when you're in a gym where it's just the self-sustaining ecosystem, kind of like when we play tech at home, right? It's just going to be wild and fun and exciting. That's kind of what you get when you're playing at Mackinac as well.
Coach, would you say that there's more pressure because it's on Mackinac Island and it's such a big deal due to how new it is of the competition?
I mean, I didn't before you asked the question. No, I'm kidding. I think there is always, when you're doing this, there's somewhat of a level of, you want to put on a show. You want it to be a good match, right? And last year we got swept, but I felt like the level of competition was high, and it was fun to be a part of it. I even said to the athletes and their families after the match. Like, I wish the score wasn't there because it was high level volleyball back and forth. So there is this level of like, you want to show up and put on a good show, but also for me as their coach, I want to see the progress, right? Like when we're recruiting, one thing we talk a lot about is like those MAC schools, those Easterns, Westerns, Centrals, you want to be recruiting with those people. So we got to be able to compete with them if we want to go to an athlete and be like, hey, come to Northern over those schools. And so there is that level of wanting to show up. But yeah, I don't know. It's always there. I guess the answer is it's always there. Like there's never a match that starts that I'm not nervous about how we're going to perform, right? It's just something that lives inside me. But from a Mackinac perspective, yeah, we know that people are watching us. We know that, this is something that people are excited about. So you want to make sure that we're not, laying an egg on them.
And then, Coach, I know you've only had a couple practices, but of those 8 freshmen, any things that you're seeing that's kind of standing out? Any players that are kind of reaching above what you had your expectations when you recruited them?
It is, like I said, the athleticism there. I think it'll be fun to watch our defensive specialists battle it out a little bit. So we have the returners in Kaylee Barlage and Julia Buma, and then we're adding Lauren Cardwell and Lisa Haugen, and they're really doing well. They're solidifying our ball control because that was, a really big fear of mine going into the season. We lost 3 primary passers in our libero, Ali Yacco, Maddie Crowley, who'd been a staple in service eve, and then Lizzie Stark, who was a 4-time all-conference player. And so there is that, question, because if you want your offense to be humming, you got to be able to pass the ball. And they've done phenomenally. So I'd say those two. I mean, I'm just going to rattle off everybody. I'll try not to. And then I think, the competition for the other outside position will be highly contested because we lost Lizzie. Like I said, it was a staple on the outside. And we're looking at Evan Lashock as potentially taking that as a returner. And then you throw in the mix Remy Madison and Sydney Bartles as well. And then you have Casey Baki, who's also coming in. And then Helen Beering, who's actually a Calumet native. All those people, I think, are going to be vying for that position. And they're big shoes to fill. And, we don't pretend like that's not a thing. So when we talk to them, we say, hey, we need somebody to step up in this moment. And all signs to the first 3 practices are that someone's going to emerge. I don't know who, but all of them have different attributes that could help us succeed on the floor.